Adrian Evans swirled his scotch like he was conducting an orchestra of his own ego. 3 this week, gentlemen. 3. He leaned back in the leather booth, a smug grin plastered across his face. His buddies Andy, Michael, and Justin exchanged knowing looks. They'd heard this tune before. "Let me guess," Andy said, barely hiding his eye roll. "Blonde Monday, brunette Wednesday, redhead Friday? Close." Adrian chuckled. "But you forgot Thursday's brunch date." Justin shook his head. "Man, one of these days, you're gonna meet someone who doesn't fall for your platinum card charm." "Not gonna happen." Adrian raised his glass. "I know exactly what women want, and I deliver. Simple transaction, no complications." Mikel leaned forward. "You sound like a vending machine for relationships." "Hey, vending machines are efficient." Adrian winked. "Everyone gets what they need. Nobody gets hurt." The truth was, Adrian had perfected his system. Expensive dinners at restaurants where the waiters knew his name. Weekend getaways to places with infinity pools. Designer gifts that arrived in boxes bigger than necessary. And when the woman started talking about feelings or futures, exit strategy activated. Anyway, Adrian checked his Rolex. "We've got that college reunion gala tomorrow. Old Westfield University throwing their annual "Please donate to our new library" party." "You're actually going?" Andy asked, surprised. "Free food, open bar, and a chance to remind everyone how successful I became? Wouldn't miss it." The next evening, the Riverside Convention Center glowed like a scene from someone's Instagram fantasy. Chandeliers, string quartets, people in tuxedos pretending their college days weren't filled with ramen noodles and all-nighters. Adrian walked in like he owned the place, which, given his latest real estate acquisition, wasn't far from the truth. "Adrian," a former classmate waved from across the room. "Heard you closed the Morrison deal. 15 million, right?" 18, actually. Adrian smiled. "But who's counting?" He grabbed a champagne flute from a passing tray, and that's when he saw her. She wasn't a guest. She was serving them, a waitress navigating the crowd with practiced efficiency, balancing a tray of hors d'oeuvres like her life depended on it. But it wasn't her job that caught his attention. It was the way she moved. Purposeful, alert, like someone studying the room, not just working it. She had beautiful dark skin that seemed to glow under the venue lights. Her hair pulled back into a sleek ponytail. But what really grabbed him were her eyes, intelligent, focused, hungry, not for the fancy food or wealthy guests, for something bigger. Adrian watched as she approached a group near the bar, offering canapés with a smile that was professional but not fake. When an older man made a dismissive gesture without even looking at her, she didn't flinch. She just moved on. "Interesting. Adrian, you listening?" Mikel appeared at his elbow. "Who's that?" Adrian nodded toward the waitress. Mikel squinted. "The server." "Dude, really?" "Just curious." Over the next hour, Adrian found himself tracking her movements. She was good, efficient, polite, never intrusive, but there was something else. During a quiet moment, he saw her pull out her phone and snap a picture of the event program, zooming in on the speaker list. A networking opportunity, research, whatever it was. She wasn't just serving appetizers and forgetting about it. Adrian made his move. "Excuse me," he said, as she passed with an empty tray. She turned, professional smile in place. "Can I get you something, sir?" "Actually, yes." "How long have you been doing this?" Her smile faltered slightly. "Doing waitressing?" "Working these kinds of events." She studied him for a moment. clearly trying to figure out his angle. About 8 months. Weekends mostly. Why? You're good at it. Efficient. You read the room well. Thank you? It came out like a question. Adrian pulled out his wallet and extracted $300 bills. For you and your team. You've made this bearable. She looked at the money, then at him. That's very generous. But we pool tips at the end. Then, this is just for you. He pressed it into her hand. And as he did, he slipped his business card between the bills. If you ever want to discuss career opportunities. She glanced down at the card, then back at him, one eyebrow raised. Career opportunities? I run a consulting firm. I'm always looking for people who understand how to navigate complex social situations. Is that what you call this? She gestured at the gala. A complex social situation? Adrian grinned. Most complicated 500 people you'll ever meet. She pocketed the money and card without another word and walked away. He waited for his phone to ring. It didn't. Day 3. Nothing. Day 5. Still nothing. Day 7. Radio silence. By day 10, Adrian was genuinely confused. Women always called. Always. The business card. The generous tip. The clear interest. It was a formula that never failed. Maybe she lost it, Andy suggested over lunch. Nobody loses $300. Maybe she's not interested in you. Justin offered with a smirk. Everyone's interested in money. That's economics. Mikkel laughed. Man, you're spiraling over a waitress you talked to for 30 seconds. I'm not spiraling. I'm curious. But the truth was, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Not in his usual way, the way he thought about which restaurant to book or which watch to wear. This was different. He wanted to know why she didn't call. What made her different from every other woman who'd jumped at his attention? On day 11, Adrian did something he'd never done before. He drove back to the Riverside Convention Center. It was early evening, and another event was wrapping up. He waited in the parking lot like some kind of stalker, which he absolutely was, until he saw her emerge from the staff entrance. Still in her server's uniform, he got out of the car. Monique Smith? She stopped, genuinely surprised. How do you know my name? I asked around. He walked closer. You never called. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder. No, I didn't. Can I ask why? Monique looked at him for a long moment, like she was deciding whether he was worth the explanation. Because if you really wanted to talk to me, you'd come find me. Which apparently you did. Adrian blinked. Wait, you were testing me? Not testing. Filtering. She started walking toward the bus stop. He followed. Filtering for what? For whether you actually wanted something real or just wanted to check another box on your conquest list. That hit harder than it should have. What makes you think? You handed me $300 like it was pocket change and a business card, like you were doing me a favor. Men like you always think money solves everything. She stopped at the bus shelter. I started showing up here on day 7. I was going to wait until day 14. If you didn't show up by then, I would have thrown away your card. Adrian felt like he'd been punched. You came here every day just to see if I'd show? Yep. That's insane. That's standards. She crossed her arms. I might be a part-time waitress, but I'm not desperate. And I'm definitely not someone's weekend entertainment. I never said. You didn't have to say it. I see guys like you every weekend. Different woman on your arm every event. You probably don't even remember their names after a month. Adrian opened his mouth to argue, then realized she was absolutely right. So, thank you for the generous tip, Monique continued. But I'm not interested in being another story you tell your friends over scotch. The bus pulled up. She stepped toward it. Wait, Adrian said. Let me buy you dinner. She turned. Why? Because I want to know more about you. You want to know why I didn't fall for your charm. That too. She studied him again, and Adrian felt genuinely nervous for the first time in years. Fine, she said, but I'm choosing the place. And it's not going to have a French name or a dress code. 20 minutes later, they were at a small Caribbean restaurant Monique loved, where the portions were huge and the prices were reasonable. Adrian felt completely out of place in his designer suit. Order whatever you want, he said, opening the menu. I'm not hungry. He looked up, confused. Then why did you agree to dinner? I agreed to talk. There's a difference. The waitress brought water. Adrian ordered jerk chicken. Monique ordered nothing. You're really not eating? I already ate before my shift. Adrian set down his menu. Okay, I'm clearly missing something here. You invited me to dinner thinking I'd be impressed by your generosity, that I'd see this as some romantic gesture. Monique leaned forward. But here's the thing. I don't need your money or your fancy dinners. What I need is respect. And right now, you're just trying to figure me out like I'm some puzzle you can solve. That's not, Adrian. I'm a 27-year-old student working 2 jobs to pay for my open university courses. I serve rich people appetizers on weekends and work at a non-profit during the week. I don't have time for games. I'm not playing games. Really? She raised an eyebrow. How many women have you dated this month? He didn't answer. That's what I thought. She stood up. Thank you for your time, but I think I'll head home. Monique, wait. No. She grabbed her jacket. You seem like a decent guy under all that expensive cologne, but you don't want me. You want the challenge of someone who said no. Once you win, you'll get bored and move on. I've seen it 1,000 times. She walked out, leaving Adrian sitting alone with a menu he couldn't focus on. The waitress approached nervously. Is your friend coming back? I don't think so. Should I cancel her order? She didn't order anything. The waitress gave him a sympathetic look. Rough night? You have no idea. Adrian sat in his penthouse that night, staring at the city lights, completely bewildered. He called Mikkel. I messed up. What happened? She walked out, said I only want the challenge. Mikkel was quiet for a moment. Is she wrong? I don't know. Adrian, man, when's the last time you actually cared about getting to know someone? And I mean really knowing them, not just knowing their dress size for surprise gifts. Adrian didn't have an answer. Look, Mikkel continued, maybe this woman is exactly what you need. Someone who doesn't want your money or status. Someone who sees through your whole act. It's not an act, isn't it? After hanging up, Adrian did something he hadn't done in years. He sat in silence and actually thought about his life. The parade of women who blurred together. The surface-level connections. The loneliness disguised as freedom. Monique was right. He didn't want a real relationship. He wanted the chase, the conquest, the validation. But looking at her business card, which he'd managed to get from the event coordinator, he realized something else. For the first time in his life, he wanted to be wrong about himself. 3 weeks passed. Adrian didn't call Monique, didn't show up at the convention center, didn't send flowers or gifts or any of his usual moves. Instead, he did something radical. He worked on himself. He started seeing a therapist, a recommendation from Andy, who'd been in therapy for years. He examined why he'd built walls around anything real. Why he treated relationships like business transactions. Why he was so terrified of actual intimacy that he'd rather have 20 shallow connections than one deep one. It wasn't pretty, but it was necessary. Meanwhile, Monique continued her routine classes during the week, nonprofit work, weekend events. She told herself she'd forgotten about Adrian Evans and his expensive suit. She was lying. There was something about the way he'd looked when she walked out of that restaurant. Not angry or offended. Sad. Like he'd just realized something about himself he didn't like. Still, she'd meant what she said. She had standards, and she wasn't lowering them for anyone, no matter how handsome or rich or persistently confusing they were. 2 months later, Monique was at a career fair for Open University students, browsing booths and collecting brochures, when she saw a familiar face. Adrian Evans was there, speaking on a panel about entrepreneurship. She almost left. But curiosity got the better of her, and she slipped into the back of the room. The biggest mistake I made, Adrian was saying to a room full of students, was thinking success meant having everything except vulnerability. I built a business, accumulated wealth, and completely forgot to build a life. Monique's eyebrows rose. Someone recently told me I treat people like transactions, he continued. And she was absolutely right. I was so afraid of being hurt or disappointed that I never let anyone close enough to matter. And that's not success. That's just expensive loneliness. After the panel, students swarmed Adrian with questions. Monique waited until the crowd thinned, then approached. That was quite a speech, she said. He turned, and his whole face lit up. Monique, hi. I didn't know you'd be here. It's a student event. I'm a student. Right. Of course. He looked nervous. Actually nervous. How have you been? Good? Busy? You? Different. Better, I think. He hesitated. Can we talk? Maybe grab coffee? She considered it. Why? Because I owe you an apology. A real one. You could apologize right here. I could, he agreed. But I was hoping you'd give me more than 60 seconds to explain how completely right you were about everything. Despite herself, Monique smiled. 30 minutes. There's a coffee shop on campus. Deal. They sat in a corner booth with mediocre coffee and a plate of cookies Monique insisted on splitting. So, she said, dunking a cookie in her coffee, what changed? You did. You changed me. Adrian ran his hand through his hair. After you left that restaurant, I couldn't stop thinking about what you said. About me only wanting the challenge. About treating women like checkboxes. And you were right. I've spent 15 years perfecting the art of keeping people at arm's length. I told myself I was protecting my freedom, but really, I was just scared. Monique listened, her expression unreadable. I've been in therapy, Adrian admitted, trying to figure out why I'm like this. Turns out childhood emotional neglect and a fear of abandonment make for excellent commitment issues. Who knew? He smiled sadly. I'm glad you're working on yourself, Monique said carefully. But Adrian, why are you telling me this? Because when you walked away, it was the first time in my life someone didn't want what I was offering. And instead of moving on like I always do, I couldn't. You stayed in my head, the way you challenge me, the way you see through my nonsense, the way you value yourself enough to walk away from something that wasn't right. He leaned forward. Monique, I'm not asking you to date me or trust me or anything like that. I know I haven't earned it. I'm just asking if maybe, possibly, we could start over. as friends, and see where it goes. Monique was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. Friends? She finally said. Friends. Real ones. Where we actually get to know each other without ulterior motives or expensive restaurants or any of my usual garbage. She smiled. Okay. Really? Really. But I'm warning you, I'm extremely boring. I study accounting. I volunteer at food banks. My idea of a wild Friday is watching documentaries about financial literacy. Adrian laughed. That sounds perfect. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he meant it. Over the next 6 months, something extraordinary happened. Adrian and Monique became actual friends. They met for coffee between her classes, studied together in the library where Adrian discovered he'd forgotten everything about macroeconomics, volunteered together at her nonprofit, where Adrian was absolutely terrible at packing food boxes but got better with practice. Adrian met Monique's mother, a nurse who grilled him like he was applying for a security clearance. Monique met Adrian's friends, who were shocked to see him showing up to game nights and actually enjoying himself. He learned that Monique wanted to open her own financial consulting firm for low-income families, that she'd been supporting herself since she was 18, that she cried during sad movies but pretended she just had allergies. She learned that Adrian played piano beautifully but hadn't touched one in years, that he donated anonymously to scholarship funds, that underneath all the confidence was someone who genuinely believed he wasn't worthy of unconditional love. They didn't kiss, didn't cross any lines, just built something neither of them had expected, a genuine connection. Month 7. They were at Adrian's apartment, where Monique was helping him prepare for a big investor presentation. She'd insisted on color-coding his slides, which he'd initially resisted but now admitted worked better. You know what's weird? Adrian said, looking up from his laptop. What? I've spent more time with you in the last 6 months than I spent with all my previous girlfriends combined. Monique smiled. Quality over quantity. Exactly. He hesitated. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you give me a chance that day at the coffee shop? I didn't deserve it. She set down her marker. Because you were honest. For the first time since I met you, you weren't trying to impress me or charm me. You were just you, scared and imperfect and trying to be better. That's all anyone can ask for. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she concentrated, the way she bit her lip when she was thinking, the way she made everything in his life brighter just by being in it. Monique? Yeah? I'm in love with you. She froze, marker hovering over the paper. I know we said friends, Adrian continued quickly, and I'm not trying to ruin that. But I've been in love with you for months now, and I can't keep pretending I'm not. You're brilliant and funny and challenging and real, and every day I spend with you makes me want to be better. Not to impress you, but because you make me believe I can be. Monique set down the marker carefully. Adrian, you don't have to say anything, he said. I just needed you to know. We can still be friends. I promise I won't make it weird. She kissed him. It wasn't dramatic or movie perfect. It was soft and tentative and real. And when they pulled apart, they were both smiling like idiots. I love you too, Monique whispered. I have for a while now. I just wanted to make sure you were ready, that this wasn't just another conquest. It's not. You're not. Adrian cupped her face. You're everything I didn't know I needed. That's very sweet, but also kind of cheesy. I'm working on my emotional expression. Give me time. She laughed and kissed him again. They dated for a year and a half. Real dating. Coffee shop dates and study sessions. Volunteer days and piano lessons. Fights about stupid things and making up over takeout. Meeting each other's families and navigating the complicated reality of blending two very different worlds. It wasn't always easy. Monique struggled with Adrian's wealth and the assumptions people made. Adrian struggled with his old habits and the fear that he'd mess everything up. But they worked at it. Together. The proposal. Adrian planned it carefully. Too carefully. According to Mikkel. "You're overthinking this, man," Mikkel said. "Just ask her." "I can't just ask her. It needs to be perfect." "Why?" "She loves you. That's all that matters." But Adrian wanted it to be special. So he arranged an evening at the community center where Monique volunteered, telling her they were hosting a thank you dinner for the volunteers. When she arrived, the room was decorated simply fairy lights, her favorite flowers, soft music playing. "What is this?" she asked, confused. "A reminder," Adrian said, taking her hand, "of where we started, you working to help others, me learning what actually matters." He got down on one knee, pulling out a ring he designed himself, elegant and understated. "Just like her. Monique Smith, you changed my entire life. You saw past the money and the walls and the fear, and you loved me anyway. Not because of who I could be, but because of who I was trying to become. Will you marry me?" Monique's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, yes, of course yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, and she pulled him up to kiss him as the volunteers who'd been hiding in the next room burst through the doors, cheering and crying. "You knew they were there?" Adrian asked, laughing. "Of course I knew. You're terrible at keeping secrets. I love you. I love you too." The wedding. They got married 8 months later in a small ceremony that was everything they wanted. Intimate, meaningful, joyful. Adrian's mother cried happy tears. Monique's mother gave a speech about never settling for less than you deserve. Andy, Mikkel, and Justin served as groomsmen, still amazed their friend had actually grown up. During his vows, Adrian said, "You taught me that love isn't about possession or conquest. It's about partnership and respect, and showing up even when it's hard. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for walking away when I needed it and coming back when I was ready. Thank you for being exactly who you are." During her vows, Monique said, "You taught me that people can change, that wealth doesn't determine worth, but character does. That underneath expensive suits and corporate success can be a heart that just wants to be seen. Thank you for becoming the man I always believed you could be. Thank you for proving that real love is worth waiting for." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. 2 years later, they were curled up on the couch in their home, not Adrian's penthouse, but a place they'd chosen together. Monique had just graduated with honors and was launching her financial consulting firm. Adrian had shifted his business model to focus on sustainable investments and fair wages. "Remember when you thought I only wanted a challenge?" Adrian asked, playing with her wedding ring. "I was protecting myself. You were right, though. At the time, I did." She looked up at him. "And now? Now I want every single day with you. The boring ones, the exciting ones, the ones where we argue about whose turn it is to do dishes. All of it." Monique smiled. "You're getting soft in your old age." "I'm 37. Ancient." He kissed her forehead. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not being desperate. For having standards. For making me work for something real. Best decision I ever made." "Second best," Adrian corrected. "First was saying yes when I finally got it right. Outside, The city hummed with millions of stories. But inside their home, Adrian Evans, former serial dater, commitment phobe, and self-proclaimed bachelor, had found something he never thought possible. He'd found home, not in a place, but in a person who'd refused to settle for anything less than genuine love. And he'd never been happier in his entire life. What did you think of Adrian and Monique's journey? Drop a comment below and let us know. Where are you watching from? We love hearing from our viewers around the world. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give? And if you enjoyed this tale of unexpected love and personal growth, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next story. Trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming next.